achieved.
I know I've already touched upon this a little bit in my post-fight recap for the International Fight Week, but I'm going to give you my top 5 things I would like to see come out of the recent purchase of the UFC and their new ownership group. Number 5, better media relations. The UFC needs to open themselves up to criticism. If a journalist or a sports media company opts to talk about something in a negative light, it shouldn't be an immediate ban. If something happens that they don't agree with, accept it. It's going to happen. And maybe even learn from it and grow from it, but certainly don't can that person or restrict their access to the promotion. Number 4, rein Dana White in a little bit, and that goes hand in hand. I'm talking about the way he relates to fans and the way he relates to fighters. Stop calling people goofs and idiots and fucking morons and everything else because their opinion differs from yours. That's just something that he needs to, I like Dana in the sense that he is certainly not your cookie-cutter Gary Bettman or any of the other commissioners of the major sports leagues, but, we need to find a happy medium, a happy balance, and I think he needs to pull back just a bit. Number 3, a hybrid form of sponsorship. I think that absolutely needs to take place. If Reebok wants to continue making the shorts, that's fine, but let's make shorts that give fighters the ability to both kind of come up with some design ideas, especially fighters that are much more established in the company, and places to put sponsors on, both on their shorts, on the banners behind them, which should absolutely not impact Reebok whatsoever, on their shirts, and just give them the opportunity to make more money. More money makes everyone happy. Number 2, improve fighter pay. Again, these kind of go hand in hand well, and bonuses. Get that base fighter pay up. And again, I talked about this last time. I want to see 3 layers of fighter pay. As far as what each fighter can get. Number 1 is just their show money, whatever they're getting to show up and fight. Number 2, and this goes for more of the lower level guys and the mid-tier fighters. Number 2 is your win bonus. You win, it could be $10,000 to show, $10,000 to win. And then if you finish your opponent, you should get another $10,000. That's going to improve people's willingness to go for it. Or if you're making 25, and 25, that's a huge difference versus, losing a decision, you get $25,000. Winning by knockout, it's $75,000. That's massive. And also that security of the contract. If you have a 3-fight contract you've signed, unless you opt out of it or we can come to a mutual buyout agreement, you are with the company. And that's going to give the fighter security and a willingness to go out there and kick some ass because they know they're not getting cut if they get knocked out, flash knockout because they're putting the pressure on. Either way, fighter security, improved fighter pay. And number 1, I'm a huge fan. I liked the way Bellator did it. Tournaments. I would love to see tournaments. I think it would give meaning to some of the lesser fights on the card, some of those lower down fights. You say, oh, this is a quarterfinal matchup in our bantamweight tournament, in our 2016 bantamweight tournament, and people go, oh, okay, well, I'm going to pay attention. And then all of a sudden you start developing fighters who people might have followed through the tournament, win 3 rounds, and suddenly, they're not going to get a title shot out of it. They might get an opportunity to fight a guy in the top 10, or maybe they get an opportunity to fight a guy in the top 5, and they put themselves on the map and they work towards an opportunity to win the title. Or they just grab some extra cash. Everything's about getting these guys paid and putting a good product together. So those are my top 5 things I'd like to see come out of the UFC purchase. Now, welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive. As always, I am your host, Scott Johnson, and on this episode of the show, we're breaking down the upcoming UFC on Fox 20, which will take place on July 23rd from Chicago, Illinois, the United Center, and I'll be giving you my 4 main card predictions. All of my preliminary picks, as always, will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. You guys, is always the case again, you can pick up my bet packs for $12 where I give you every single fight breakdown, both fantasy and betting. I talk about all the props available. I talk about just about everything you can imagine. I'm not one of these guys who're going to spend $50 to pick up, bet this super, super heavy favorite with this moderate favorite and put down $50 or put down $200 and boom, you just won yourself $75. You're welcome. Now, that's not what I do. I have bets that are, pay moderately well with lower risk. I have bets that pay extremely well with higher risk, and when we hit them, it is fantastic. Do with it what you will, but I've rambled on long enough. We've got 4 pretty awesome fights. Let's get to that first main card prediction. We are going to open up with a fight that has the potential to steal the show. It's in the women's strawweight division as the little bulldog Felice Herrig finally returns to action with a record of 10 wins and 6 losses, and she takes on the very double tough Kailin Curran with a current record of 4 wins and 2 losses. Now, this is a big opportunity for these girls to fight on the big stage. Now, keep in mind, Herrig has much more experience on the big stage. She fought Paige Van Zandt at Fox 15's main card, and it was a fantastic scrap. For Curran, for the majority of her fights, actually all of her fights, they have been very early on the card, fight past prelims, opening fights on the cards. This is a big step up as far as the the level of exposure this matchup is going to get. She did lose to Paige Van Zandt, and But both when they were both starting out. So this is a big stage jitter possibilities for Kailin in this matchup. For Herrig, though, 15 months on the shelf, so she hasn't been that active of late. She was training for American Ninja Warrior. We started to compete on that. Much better effort this time around for Felice. Congratulations. And for Kailin Curran, she has actually fought twice since the last time we saw Felice inside the cage. Physically, both girls are 5'4". They have an equal 65-inch reach. Curran is the younger fighter by 7 years, but Herrig has a massive experience advantage with 16 pro bouts to just 6 for Kailin, plus her wealth of kickboxing experience, plus her time on the Ultimate Fighter. So huge advantage for Herrig as far as experience is concerned. Now, looking at what they bring to the table, Herrig is a BJJ blue belt. She has a 23-5 record as a Muay Thai fighter, very well-respected kickboxer. 1 win by knockout in the UFC, MMA, 3 wins by submission. She has never been finished, and she overall is 6-6 on the scorecards. For Kailin Curran, 1-1 in fights ended by submission, 3-0 on the scorecards, and 0-1 in fights ended by knockout, getting absolutely worn out by Paige Van Zandt in that loss. And yeah, that's basically what it come down to. Is Curran, it was a very good fight back and forth. Curran had a lot of success early on, but she got wore out and exhausted and finished by Paige. Against Alex Chambers, she was having a lot of success early and got overconfident and submitted in the 3rd round. And in her last match against Emily Kagan, she was actually on the defensive for the entirety of the bout until she eventually got Kagan kind of slowing down and caught her in a nice submission to finish that fight. She outstruck Chambers 125-53 in that her second UFC fight and looked exceptionally good until she just made a major mistake. She throws a nice long left jab, straight right hook. She'll work in there, nice length on her strikes overall. It doesn't have a ton of pop, but still they're stinging shots. She is much better as a fighter when she's going forward and pressing than when she's backing up, and that's something she has to be aware of. When she does get caught up in the clinch, she'll throw some solid knees, and that's something she'll use as a weapon to kind of counter that forward pressure in this fight. When she fought Chambers, she cut off the cage exceptionally well, and again, she started to find success against Emily Kagan when Kagan slowed down. But prior to that, Kagan really pushed the pace and had her backing up. Was getting cracked with some early shots from Kagan. She tends to keep her head on the center line, which gets her hit a lot more than she should. You know, Chambers was countering her, landing some good shots, and I don't like the way Curran shells up when she's under attack and takes those extra strikes she shouldn't be exposed to. Kagan had a lot of success pinning Curran on the cage, and Kailin was unable to create the mandatory separation to get off and get where she wanted to be. She was almost too accepting of that position on the wall. She has some nice throws in close, struggles holding top position. She's had some issues with getting taken down out of scrambles, off of takedown attempts. She can work top position, but it's something that she just needs to, solidify that position. Now for Herrig, we know she comes from a Muay Thai background, and we've seen that she's an exceptionally strong fighter, very physically strong. She's very strong in the clinch. She does a nice job of dirty boxing, those short-range strikes, uppercuts, nice overhand rights coming over the top while keeping her opponent tied up in close. When she fought Lisa Ellis, she had a nice trip takedown. She showed a very strong and good offensive guard on her back. Very good in scrambles and looks for that armbar, which is kind of her trademark submission. She will attack off her back, looks for triangles, can sweep to top position if necessary. She'll chain submissions together and just keep working until her opponent makes a mistake and she can capitalize on it. In her, against Paige Van Zandt, she had a lot of success getting good positions early on, got Paige's back, had some success there, just couldn't keep up with her pace. Now, she does make some positional mistakes at the same time. Like Lisa Ellis had a quick guillotine. Heather Jo Clark attempted a similar move on the Ultimate Fighter, which is something that quite possibly Herrig could be sticking her head in too far when shooting for takedowns. Paige Van Zandt had success throwing her and ultimately wore her down in that fight. Ellis took her down a couple of times, but we saw Herrig, once she gets taken down, she's immediately looking to counter, and that's a big factor in this fight because Curran's going to look to clinch, tie up, and drag her to the mat in this matchup, and I think Herrig has the answer for that. The layoff is very concerning for Felice, but she has fought much higher level competition. Her quantity of experience and her quality of experience is superior, plus her kickboxing background. I think Curran struggles when she's under attack, and Felice will be right in her face the entire fight. I think the power of Felice is going to just be too much for Kailin in the clinch. She's going to take Kailin down. I think Curran's cardio is a little bit questionable if Felice can push her. I expect to see Herrig land strikes at distance. Once Curran closes the distance, Felice is going to crack her in the clinch. She'll take her down, control top position. She'll win the majority of the scramble. She'll beat her up on the mat, and I think she eventually catches her. And my prediction is Felice Herrig to defeat Kailin Curran by submission. We move now from the smallest weight class in the promotion all the way up to the biggest, as we have a heavyweight bout up next, as the Cameroon native Francis the Predator Ngannou, with a record of 7 wins and 1 loss, takes on UFC debutant Bojan Mihajlovic. I'm probably butchering that. He has a current record of 10 wins and 3 losses. Now for Ngannou, he is really rolling coming into this. He's 2-0 in the UFC with a pair of impressive knockouts. For Mihajlovic, he started his professional career 0-3, which would deter a lot of fighters, but he has since rallied, winning 10 consecutive bouts. But his last, and he's coming from a very developing region in Serbian MMA. His last 3 opponents have a combined 14-14 record, which isn't terrible. But if you look at the fights surrounding when they fought Bojan, they were 1-12, including losses to him. So they're certainly in vulnerable portions of their career. Now, the other thing you look at his career, he's had a very hit and miss as far as activity is concerned. He fought once early in 2016. Prior to that, it was 2014. And one fight prior to that, it was 2010. So he's been spurts of activity with a lot of inactivity in between. Now, for Ngannou, he is a mountain of a man. 5 inches taller. He'll have a 9-inch reach advantage. And he should come in 10 to 15 pounds heavier. He's also 6 years younger. For Mihajlovic, he could actually be a light heavyweight and not a very big light heavyweight. And it seems like it's more of a product of where he's fighting. There's not a lot of heavyweights, so he's able to have success there. For Ngannou, he has 4 wins by knockout, 3 by submission, 0-1 on the scorecards. He has stopped his opponent 4 of his last 5 finishes in the second round, interestingly enough, which shows patience, what I'll talk about in a moment. For Mihajlovic, I've said that probably 4 different ways so far. 4 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission, 4-2 in the scorecards. He has 1 loss by submission. He has 6 first-round finishes, which is interesting to note, or all his other wins decision. So it's either first-round finish or you're going to the scorecards with this dude, it seems like. For Ngannou, he's a massive man. Physically dominates his opponents, hits exceptionally hard, moves very well, though, for a big guy. Very athletic. He has some grappling experience outside of MMA. He has shown some very nice strikes, even though he wasn't really lauded for his striking capability. He throws an exceptionally hard uppercut, which he knocked out Luis Henrique with in his first UFC fight. Big right hand as well, and he'll throw in a nice left hook in combination with that as well. His uppercuts, he gets a heck of a lot of extension. They come from far away, and they close a lot of distance. That really throws fighters off. That straight left, also very powerful. We saw a nice counter left on his a low kick from his last opponent, Curtis Blaze, whereas it works at left uppercut, straight right in combination. He'll also pop out a right jab, which the way he throws it can be devastating. He also shows a lot of good fakes and feints, and he's very patient early on, trying to draw out his opponent's tendencies, not overextend himself, not put himself in bad positions, and let the knockout come to him. Waits for those openings, and when he does get an opponent hurt, he doesn't punch himself out, which is fantastic to see out of a young fighter. In the clinch, he throws very hard knees. He'll really target that, the thigh and leg area, try and take some movement over his opponent. And on top, he has massive ground and pound. Now, this is a guy a lot of fighters have tried to take down and have had success taking him down. Both his first 2 opponents did. He'll look to sprawl and punch his way to takedowns. If his opponent's able to get on his hips, he can be put down, but he's very good at using underhooks to get back up, stuff upcoming attempts. He learns and it develops, and he's a very smart individual based on what I've seen from his fight IQ. When Curtis Blaze looked to take him down, he shut down those early takedown attempts, and when he gets put down, he gets back up as quickly as he possibly can, use those underhooks, cage walks, and just able to work his way into a better position. Now, as I said, with Mihajlovic, that's not right, whatever. This guy, the new guy, the Serbian, he's very light on his feet, but he's a lighter man. He wants to fight at range, and he throws a lot of kicks. But the thing is, when he starts letting his hands go and punching, he's got that short reach, forces him to come forward, and it routinely winds up with him getting tied up in the clinch, which is not something, he doesn't want to be on the inside. I guess it's either all the way in or all the way out for this fella. He has had issues being muscled around the clinch, getting held on the cage and getting beaten up, but he works his takedowns from this position. Body lock takedowns, he'll establish those underhooks, and use that low center of gravity to snap a fighter down to the mat, and it's very effective for him. It's worked, but again, it could be the fact his success has been a product of the regional scene. He's been working on guys who don't know how to defend those techniques. He's pretty good on the mat, works towards mount. Almost initially, it's just guard, side control, mount is his pathway to victory. Good ground and pound once he gets in top position. Now, for Mihajlovic, I think he's just way too small to come to this level. I fully expect to see him fighting as a UFC light heavyweight. Ngannou's power and physicality is just going to be too much for him, whether it be in the clinch or at distance. Ngannou, very good at getting back up if he's taken down, and with his size, I expect him to be able to power his way off his back if he is put down. Ngannou, look for him to land that big uppercut against a shorter opponent as he comes in, hurts him, and finishes. My prediction is Francis Ngannou to defeat Bojan Mihajlovic one last time by knockout. We move now to the co-main event of the evening. This is a massive fight in the UFC's lightweight division. So the number 6 ranked Edson Barboza, 17-4-0, coming off the biggest win of his career, taking out Anthony Pettis, takes on former Strikeforce champion and 2-time UFC title contender El Nino Gilbert Melendez with a current record of 22 wins and 5 losses. Now Melendez is returning after a 13-plus month layoff after being suspended, and keep in mind, as high level as he has been in Strikeforce and the competition, he's 1-3 in the UFC with his only win coming over Diego Sanchez. This is a must-win for Gilbert. Barboza, he has fought 3 times since Gilbert's last matchup. So he's been very active since Gilbert's been suspended. And he's coming off that huge win over Anthony Pettis that so far has defines his career at this point with Edson. He's struggled to get those big wins in high-profile fights. That was a big win. He has another opportunity here. Barboza is 2 inches taller, 2-inch reach advantage. He's 4 years younger. Now, one thing interesting, though, Melendez just fought and lost in a fight I predicted correctly, Eddie Alvarez. And Eddie Alvarez defeated him, went on to obviously win the title. So Alvarez is a teammate of Barboza's at Almeida BJJ, and that's an opportunity there for them to sit down and share ideals and talk about, okay, what does Gilbert like to fight? What did you do in your training that you found was successful? What didn't work? What did work? Let's go from there. So fully I expect to see a transfer and exchange of ideas in this fight between Barboza and Alvarez. Now for Edson, we know what he's all about. Nasty, nasty Muay Thai, black belt in Taekwondo as well. He shows in that kicking background. BJJ purple belt. He has 9 wins by knockout. He's 6-1 on the scorecard, so he knows exactly. He can beat guys with his power. He can beat guys out pointing them. He is lethal when he's able to set up his strikes. He has fight-changing leg kicks. Once he lands them, it's a new ball game for his opponent's deteriorated lack of movement overall. Turning side kick, he'll go to the body, digs those toes, and we saw him stop. I believe it was Evan Dunham with that brutal kick to the body. Hard low kicks, when we against Anthony Pettis took out his base a lot of time after punching combinations, excellent counters. And fighters know if they're going to get kicked after they go to throw a combination, they're not going to sit down in that combination nearly as much. It takes a lot of the stank off it. Another thing I like about Edson's technique, his hands are always up, ready to strike, quick to deliver. Left hook to the body, right hook kick combination. He has a nice varied striking technique. He does everything right with his hands, and he's very quick. Look for him to pump that left jab out. He's exceptionally quick with his kicks. Nice left hook counter versus Pettis was landing routinely and had a lot of success. Now, on the bad side, Edson has struggled with pressure in the past. His striking defense, 3.5 strikes absorbed per minute. He's still landing more than he's getting hit with the impact. It's a good exchange, but still, it's getting hit a lot. His chin's a bit of an issue. He's been knocked out with both Donald Cerrone and Jamie Varner in fights, and that's something Gilbert Melendez is going to look to capitalize on. Barboza is not nearly the same fighter when he's going backwards. Against Michael Johnson, he was getting cracked with a lot of shots when he's moving backwards, struggling with the pressure. His cardio started to falter, and we saw that against Tony Ferguson as well, as pushing that pace early and really backing him up and firing. And that's something, if Edson's moving backwards, he's not able to get the strikes off. But again, against Ferguson, he showed an improved ability to deal with that high-paced, frenetic pressure. And, I think that showed off in the Pettis fight. Now, looking at Gilbert Melendez, when he fought Anthony Pettis in a fight I picked Gilbert to win for the title, he was having a lot of success pressuring Pettis early, attacking him along the cage, looking for takedowns, mixing things that was very effective, but ultimately he couldn't hold up and he was submitted. In this matchup, he could use his wrestling to dictate where the fight takes place. I'm not nearly as sold on his wrestling as a lot of people are, and I think Edson's very difficult to take down, especially once he starts cracking you in the legs and taking away your base. Gil likes to use that long left jab, and the thing he does is he doesn't just attack with it, he constantly is pushing it out, just putting it out there for a range tester to see, okay, whereabouts are you, what are you going to do, and you see, he'll double it up, he'll triple it up. Sometimes he'll throw it with power, sometimes it's just a continuous disruption of that space in between the fighters. He'll punch to the body, which is very effective, and he does a good job of keeping pressure on. He will open up and brawl, and that's something he might look to employ in this matchup. I don't like the way Gil comes in a little wide with his power strikes. He tends to throw open hooks, leaves his guard open a little bit down the middle, and that's something Edson Barboza with that much more channeled and short to the target punches will be able to counter down the middle. There are some defensive lapses in Gil's attack. Obviously, when he opens up, he's a little bit too hittable at times. We saw him get rocked by Diego Sanchez and nearly finished in a fight that he was comfortably ahead on the scorecards. Now, Gil, he landed a massive counter against Eddie Alvarez. He, was having a lot of success, landed that short left jab, boom, overhand right as he came in. But against a very fast striker, Edson Barboza, I think that's going to be difficult. The other thing I don't like about Gil, he leaves his lead left leg sitting out. He likes to sit down his punches. That lead left leg is exposed and sitting out there with a very wide stance. I think Eddie Alvarez landed some leg kicks. I think Barboza is going to light him up. Gil wasn't checking. If you let one or two of these big leg kicks get through, you're going to need to start checking them, or you're going to be laying on the ground looking up, unable to walk. I think Barboza is going to be the busier striker in this matchup. He does get hit more often than Gilbert Melendez, but his strikes are going to be more impactful, and I don't think Gilbert carries the pace that the number suggests from back in his Strikeforce days against lesser competition. That long left jab that Gil likes to throw there, I think it's going to get him countered by Edson Barboza quite a bit. That heavy lead leg is going to give Barboza ample opportunity to land those thudding leg kicks and really take away his movement. Edson will be routinely quicker to the punch. That speed advantage will prevent prevent Gilbert from landing those big strikes and those counter punches. If Gilbert can land, he certainly can hurt him and could finish him, but I don't think he's quick enough or technically sound enough to emulate what Michael Johnson or Tony Ferguson did against Edson Barboza. I think Barboza outstrikes him, defends the takedowns, hurts him, busts him up, and my prediction is Edson Barboza to defeat Gilbert Melendez by decision. And we will finish up with the ladies in the main event of the evening, the women's bantamweight division. The former champion, number 2 ranked Holly Holm, the preacher's daughter, if you will, 10 wins and 1 loss, coming off that 1 loss, taking on the 7th ranked of Kurdistan, Valentina Bullet Shevchenko, the current record of 12 wins and 2 defeats. Now, looking at this matchup, Holm is coming off a title fight loss, and that certainly can be a big letdown, but she has to look at it and say, I dominated that matchup. I had a few moments that I didn't do so well. One of them cost me the title, and Miesha Tate, the girl that took the title from me, has just recently lost the matchup. I think she'll be motivated to get right back in there and have success to get herself lined up with a future shot at the title if the UFC is willing to allow that to happen. Shevchenko is coming off the 2nd loss of her career, first since 2010, and it was on the same card, actually. Amanda Nunes won that fight and got herself an opportunity to fight for the title based on that success. Physically, Holm is 3 inches taller. She'll have a 2-inch reach advantage, but she is the older fighter by 7 years. Now, both come from boxing or kickboxing backgrounds. Both have dabbled in one and had a lot of success in the other. Shevchenko, as a kickboxer, 58-2-1, versus Holm as a boxer, 33-2-0. So this is a real we're meeting in MMA, we're mixed martial arts. This is really the mixed martial arts aspect of it. 2 very talented fighters from other combat sports hooking it up and going head-to-head in mixed martial arts. Now, for Shevchenko, 4-1 in fights ended by knockout, 5-0 in fights ended by submission, 3-1 on the scorecards. For Holly Holm, 7 wins by knockout, 3-0 in fights that go the distance, and 1 submission loss on her record. For Holly, she manages distance exceptionally well, uses her kicking game to both attack opponents and defend against their ability to close the gap. That's something we've seen out of her exclusively. Her kicking game is arguably better than her boxing, or at least has been shown to be better than her boxing. She uses that push kick to create distance. She'll also work the oblique kick in a similar fashion. It seems, again, it's more like separation maintenance than it is doing damage, but that head kick, that lethal head kick that she knocked Ronda Rousey out with, that will do some serious damage. She has several kick-related knockouts, though. A leg kick TKO, a couple body kick TKOs, 3 head kick knockouts. If she hits you and she just keeps beating you up, you're eventually going to go down. When she fought Miesha Tate, she shut down Tate from the outside, landed strikes where Tate couldn't hurt her, and avoided that distance being closed in 3 of the 5 rounds, and looked like she was on her way to doing it again in round 5 until she made that mistake. But once Tate got on the inside and dragged her down, Holm had issues, and that's where she seems to be vulnerable, and that's a big question mark. We'll talk about that momentarily. Now, for Shevchenko, she's shown herself capable of fighting on the ground. She had some nice clinch-based takedowns against Sarah Kaufman. She was very strong in that position against Sarah Kaufman, who's a very strong fighter. Against Jan Finney as well, she had some, prior to going to the UFC, she used a similar technique to put her down. She took Amanda Nunes down in the 3rd round, had a lot of success from top position. Overall, she's a pretty good clinch fighter. She'll land some hard knees, some dirty boxing in that position, and she wants to close that gap against Holly Holm and get in there. Against Sarah, every time Kaufman came forward and used that aggression, we saw a lot of counter-striking out of Valentina, which was very effective. Quick, straight combination. She threw a nice liver kick, spinning back fist. Very efficient with her movement. Nothing grandiose, nothing ridiculous, just straight to the point. I'm going to hit you, and I'm going to keep my body in a very tight, compact motion that's going to keep me defensively strong, not waste my energy, and get me right back on the opportunity to attack again. Spinning back kicks, she'll throw those as well. Knees in the clinch. Very effective overall once she gets on the inside. But she tends to be a bit of a slow starter. Over a 5-round fight might work a little bit better than over a 3-round fight. But you never want to give up rounds against a fighter this level. Against Amanda Nunes, she was allowing Nunes to sit back and pick away at her and land strikes without really pushing or landing or throwing much of anything. And that gave Nunes the lead. And against Holly Holm, you don't want to let Holly Holm score points early on. You want to push her and you want to get her off of her rhythm and land some strikes early, because you're going to need to bank some punches early and some contact early to hopefully slow her down late. Holm in this matchup has the reach advantage, and I think she uses her length much better. She'll sit on the outside, and she's going to land against Shevchenko, who tends to but not be nearly as effective if she can't get in close. If Shevchenko moves into the ability to counter where she can land strikes, that's big, but I think Holm's going to keep her out of that. I think Shevchenko might come in looking for takedowns to try and change that pace, but there's a big difference between what we see out of Miesha Tate looking for takedowns and scrambles and such than what we saw from Ronda Rousey and what we saw from Shevchenko. They're both looking for clinch-based takedowns. That makes covering that distance much more difficult. Tate is more of a drive, shoot, and scramble, put her on the mat. The other girls look to close that distance first, establish body control, and then look for the takedown. And that's what Holly Holm is exceptionally good at avoiding. Here's another thing. Holly Holm has 0 first-round stoppages compared to one in the 5th, several second and third round stoppages. He's so good at measuring her opponent, timing them, figuring out what mistakes they're going to make, where the openings are, and then landing and doing damage. Holm's volume won't blow you out of the water, but her defensive abilities magnify what she lands. So, she's not going to land 6-7 strikes a minute, but if she lands 3 to 3.5 and keeps her opponents to just over 1, that shows up significantly. Look for that, her to set up that head kick by going to the body, going to the legs, really picking away at Shevchenko and getting her frustrated, forcing her to try and close that distance, and get aggressive, looking to get in on the inside. And eventually Holly's going to land something like we saw against Ronda Rousey. My prediction is Holly Holm. Look for that head kick to defeat Valentina Shevchenko by TKO. So those are my 4 main card predictions for UFC on Fox 20. There are 8 preliminary bouts I'll be breaking down at kamikazeoverdrive.net. Come on over, check them out. The panel will be posting their predictions as well. They're doing a bang-up job as always. I'm hoping to rebound from a little bit of a drop-off at UFC 200 and UFC Fight Night 91. I've had a little more time to prepare for these matchups, which I absolutely enjoy having. The bet packs will be available. $12 gets you a world of insight into everything I have to offer. Hey, I don't guarantee anything. I do guarantee, though, you will be pissed off if I hit huge and the rest of us hit huge and you opted not to spend that $12 and at least take a look. If you're doing well on your own, by all means, continue doing what you're doing. If you're slumping or want to change a pace in your betting routine, take a look. It's $12. It's not $50. Heck, for the way I do things, you can get a full 2 months of fight breakdowns for a subscription for the same price other people do for 1 or 2 shows. You can't go wrong with that, okay? Follow me on Twitter, KO_predictions. Check me out on Facebook as well. I'm getting a lot more Facebook followers starting to pick up. Twitter followers are starting to pick up. And things are going well. Enjoying it. Almost broke my record for total site views at UFC Fight Night. It was the Ultimate Fighter finale, actually, heading into UFC 200, where I came just a couple views short of breaking my all-time single-day record, which was fantastic. I really enjoyed that. The polls didn't do so well. I didn't get them up as quickly as possible, as quickly as I had before, so they didn't get the high votes in there. That's cool. They'll be up again for UFC 201, which is right around the corner, and I need to get working on that and these prelims. So thanks for listening, guys, and I'll talk to you again soon.